Day 69. Nancy Guthrie is still missing. And today, the FBI sealed the trunk of a gray Range Rover found idling 2 miles from her home. This changes the entire geometry of the investigation. We are no longer just looking for an 84-year-old woman. We are looking for a ghost who operates within a very specific time loop. A ghost who knows exactly how to silence a modern smart home. Welcome to Evidence with John, where we only trust the data. Hit subscribe if you want to track the digital footprint of this ongoing case with us. It has been over 2 months since the early morning hours of February 1st. Law enforcement is facing a massive wall of silence. No verified proof of life has emerged from any source. The reward stands at $1 million. Yet nobody is talking. The gray vehicle seized at a Culver parking lot, according to reports from Reuters and KGUN 9, is currently the most tangible piece of physical evidence in the hands of federal agents. Agents taped the seals over the doors and towed it into lockup. But the real crime scene is not a vehicle. It is not a physical room. It is a digital void. It is a terrifying 41-minute gap in the server logs. Data from the FBI and local network logs show the doorbell camera was manually disabled at exactly 1:47 in the morning. The attacker cut the eyes of the house. They blinded the perimeter, but they missed the heartbeat. Nancy relies on a medical pacemaker. That internal device transmits a continuous Bluetooth diagnostic signal to a base station next to her bed. It is a digital pulse. Medical records and data reviewed by Fox 10 confirm that the pacemaker signal permanently disconnected at 2:28 in the morning. That is exactly 41 minutes after the front camera went dark. 41 minutes. That is how long an armed shadow stood inside a dark house with an elderly woman. Former homicide detectives analyzing the release data emphasized that spending 41 minutes at an active scene is an extreme tactical risk. It defies criminal logic. If this was a standard ransom grab, it would require less than 5 minutes. You kick the door, you secure the target, you leave, snatch and go. You do not linger in a wealthy neighborhood with active security patrols. You certainly do not stay inside the target location for nearly an hour unless you have a secondary objective. So what exactly was happening during those 36 remaining minutes? Were they searching the house for a specific financial document? Were they waiting for a secondary transport vehicle to arrive at a designated time? Or were they methodically cleaning a crime scene to eliminate trace evidence? To understand the sheer magnitude of that 41-minute window, we have to establish the baseline of the night. We have to look at the hours before the cameras died. Nancy Guthrie is the mother of NBC anchor Savannah Guthrie. She lives in the highly secure Catalina foothills area of Pima County, Arizona. It is an affluent neighborhood, quiet streets, desert landscaping, high walls. Nancy has severe mobility issues. Walking just 50 yards is a massive physical challenge for her. She is not someone who could simply wander off into the desert night. At 9:50 on the night of January 31st, her son-in-law, Tommaso Cioni, drove her home from a family dinner. He pulled up to the driveway. He dropped her off right at the front entrance. The official timeline released by the Pima County Sheriff Department confirms he watched her walk safely inside the house, the garage door lowered, the heavy deadbolts engaged. That was the last time a human being saw Nancy Guthrie. From that moment forward, the narrative is handed over entirely to machines. The motion sensors, the local internet routers, the medical implants in her chest. The house was designed by experts to be an impenetrable fortress of convenience and security, but a smart home is only as secure as its server architecture. And the intruder knew exactly where the network blind spots were located. They moved through the quiet streets of the Catalina foothills, deliberate and completely unseen. They bypassed the external perimeter. They reached the front porch without triggering neighborhood alarms. And then they initiated a sequence of events that left behind a trail of confusing digital breadcrumbs. The electronic sensors are telling a story that completely defies the logic of a simple home invasion. Everything that happened behind that locked garage door was not recorded by human eyes. It was recorded by cold electronic sensors. And they are telling a very different story. At 2:12 in the morning, a silent alarm registers deep inside the local network. A motion sensor detects movement in the interior hallway. The hardware functions exactly as designed. It registers a shift in thermal mass. It sends a ping to the main router. But the system encounters a fatal dead end. The data has nowhere to go. Police logs confirm the family did not maintain an active cloud storage subscription. The camera wakes up, it sees the intruder, it holds the image in its temporary cache, and then it simply deletes it. The footage vanishes into the digital ether. This is the terrifying illusion of modern residential security. We wire our walls with lenses and infrared beams. We believe we are building an impenetrable shield, but without offsite memory, a camera is just a glass eye. It cannot remember. The person walking through Nancy Guthrie's home understands this fundamental weakness. They navigate the floor plan with chilling confidence. They are not rushing. They are not displaying the chaotic energy of a standard burglar. A standard burglar moves fast. They rip electronics from the walls. They trigger secondary alarms. They panic. This individual moves with military precision. They know which zones are active. They know which lenses have no cloud backup. They systematically dismantle the digital perimeter of a multi-million-dollar estate. The physical architecture of the house becomes irrelevant. The high walls do not matter. The heavy oak doors do not matter. The attacker is playing a game of digital chess against a local router, and they are winning. They isolate the 84-year-old woman from the outside world without breaking a single pane of glass. It is a surgical strike on her connectivity. The intruder disables the primary nodes. They cut the primary feeds. They stand in the silent house, believing they have achieved total digital darkness. They think the network is dead. They think they are invisible. But they make one critical miscalculation. They account for every piece of hardware mounted to the walls. They analyze the perimeter sensors. They map the local area network. Yet they completely miss the piece of hardware beating inside the victim's chest. We have to break the timeline right here. The initial data suggested the attacker neutralized the environment at 1:47. The doorbell camera dies. The house goes dark. Logic dictates that the physical extraction happens immediately after. A swift abduction is a safe abduction. But the FBI and local authorities pull the medical logs. Nancy requires a specialized cardiac device, a pacemaker. This specific model does more than regulate her heartbeat. It acts as a continuous telemetry beacon. It connects via Bluetooth to a base station situated directly beside her bed. It pings the receiver constantly. It says, "I am here." The heart is beating. The connection is stable. Data reviewed by news outlets shows this steady rhythm of data packets continuing long past the initial breach. The intruder is inside. The house is compromised. But the Bluetooth tether remains unbroken. It pulses through the dark, minute after minute. The signal holds steady at 1:50. It holds steady at 2 o'clock. It holds steady at 2:15. The heartbeat data continues to stream to the bedside console. And then at exactly 2:28 in the morning, the connection severs. It does not fade. It drops permanently. The baseline goes flat. We need to stop and look at the math. The primary camera dies at 1:47. The medical connection dies at 2:28. That is a difference of exactly 41 minutes. Let that sink in. Drop a comment below and tell us what you think a masked intruder is doing inside an active crime scene for 41 minutes. Because even seasoned investigators are baffled. 40 minutes is an eternity in a home invasion. It breaks every known protocol of a snatch and grab operation. If the goal is financial leverage, you move with explosive speed, you grab the high-value target, you exit through the nearest clear vector, you put miles between yourself and the crime scene before the first patrol car turns onto the street. You do not stay inside the house. You do not spend 41 minutes breathing the same air as your victim. The physical risk multiplies with every passing second. A neighbor might look out a window. A private security vehicle might conduct a random sweep. A delayed alarm might finally reach a dispatch center. Yet the attacker stays. They remain in the Catalina Foothills residence while the clock ticks down. What is happening during this massive gap in the timeline? Are they waiting for a specific time window to move the victim? Are they methodically searching the property for something more valuable than a human life? Or is the extraction already complete and the intruder is spending 41 minutes meticulously scrubbing the scene of forensic evidence? The data cannot tell us what they are doing. It can only tell us they are there. The medical base station sits quietly on the nightstand, logging the exact moment its target moves out of range. The 2:28 timestamp is the anchor of this entire mystery. It proves the attacker has supreme confidence. They are not worried about a rapid police response. They control the environment completely. They control the pace of the crime. The 41-minute occupation transforms this case from a standard kidnapping into a highly orchestrated operation. It suggests a level of comfort that is deeply unsettling. The digital logs map a timeline of absolute control. The camera dies, the motion sensor trips, the heartbeat fades away. 3 data points plotting a curve into total darkness. The authorities have the numbers. They have the precise timestamps of the tragedy, but the numbers only measure the shape of the void. They do not fill it. They do not explain why an 84-year-old woman is taken into the night with such terrifying patience. The timeline is broken. The logic is fractured. And as we dig deeper into the physical evidence left behind, we find that the 41 minutes of silence were not entirely bloodless. If this operation is a surgical digital strike, why is there blood scattered across the front porch? The electronic footprint suggests a phantom, a ghost moving flawlessly through network blind spots. But the physical crime scene tells a brutally grounded story. The attacker makes a mistake. Investigators from the Pima County Sheriff Department arrive at the Catalina Foothills estate. They secure the perimeter. They process the concrete steps leading up to the main entrance. They find biological material. Swabs are taken and rushed to the crime lab. The sequence is run. The results are absolute. The blood belongs to Nancy. This single physical fact shatters the illusion of a quiet and controlled extraction. It introduces chaos into the timeline. A woman with a cardiac pacemaker and severe mobility issues is bleeding outside her own home. The questions immediately multiply. Did she attempt to escape? Did she fight back against an armed intruder? Or did the sheer terror of the home invasion trigger a catastrophic medical event? The blood on the porch is a glaring anomaly. It completely contradicts the meticulous patience of the 41-minute wait. A professional operator who comfortably waits in the dark does not typically drag a bleeding target through the primary exit. They contain the area. They avoid leaving a biological trail. Yet the blood is there. It forces law enforcement to reevaluate the competence of the suspect. The attacker is brilliant with digital networks, but sloppy with physical reality. And the complications do not end at the front door. The forensics team moves inside the residence. They sweep the interior zones. They look for skin cells. They look for hair fibers. They look for anything left behind during those missing 41 minutes. They find another biological sample. But this discovery does not provide immediate answers. It creates a massive forensic bottleneck. Sheriff Chris Nanos confirms the recovery of a mixed DNA sample from the interior of the house. Forensic specialists face a monumental challenge. Mixed DNA means the genetic material of the victim and the attacker are inextricably combined at the microscopic level. The forensic technicians are looking at a chemical soup. They cannot easily separate the suspect from the victim. The alleles overlap. The genetic markers cross over each other in chaotic patterns. It is the biological equivalent of trying to isolate a single voice in a crowded room. You hear the noise, but you cannot identify the speaker. Genetic genealogy experts like C.C. Moore have revolutionized cold cases. They use advanced algorithms to build family trees from trace evidence. But even the most sophisticated computational models struggle with highly degraded or heavily mixed profiles. The crime lab requires time to untangle the strands. They need time to run the mathematical permutations. But time is the one resource the task force does not possess. Every passing hour degrades the probability of a safe recovery. The physical investigation completely stalls out inside the laboratory. The authorities possess the biological signature of the armed intruder. It is sealed inside a sterile evidence tube, but they cannot read the signature. They are locked out of the genetic data just as effectively as the family was locked out of the security cameras. The investigation is paralyzed by scientific limitations. And whenever a high-profile investigation hits a wall of silence, the void is rapidly filled by something else. The void is filled by noise. A dangerous and distracting noise begins to echo across the media landscape. It threatens to derail the entire hunt. While the forensic scientists struggle with overlapping DNA strands, a completely different kind of evidence surfaces online. It is loud, it is chaotic, and it demands immediate attention. An anonymous email lands in the inbox of the celebrity news outlet TMZ. The sender claims total responsibility for the home invasion. The message operates as a digital ransom note. It demands a payment of one single Bitcoin. The author makes a series of aggressive and specific claims regarding the location of the victim. They state the 84-year-old woman has been smuggled across the southern border. They claim Nancy is currently being held captive at an undisclosed location deep inside Mexico. The message is weaponized to trigger mass panic. It leverages the national fame of Savannah Guthrie to guarantee maximum viral exposure. The internet immediately erupts into chaos. Armchair detectives dissect every single word of the published email. They track the current exchange rate of the cryptocurrency. They endlessly speculate about cartel involvement and international smuggling routes. The digital noise is deafening. It threatens to overwhelm the legitimate investigation. But the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Department of Justice look past the sensational text. They analyze the digital routing of the ransom demand. They review the server hops. They assess the specific syntax of the threats. And they officially classify the email as an alleged hoax. It is fake news. It is a cruel manipulation of a highly publicized family tragedy. The sender is almost certainly an opportunist. They are attempting to extract untraceable cryptocurrency from a desperate family by capitalizing on the intense media frenzy. The authorities urge the public to completely ignore the distraction, but ignoring the noise is incredibly difficult when the local political climate is actively boiling over. The pressure on the Pima County Sheriff Department is reaching a critical mass. Sheriff Chris Nanos is not just fighting a phantom kidnapper in the dark, he is fighting for his professional survival in the daylight. Reports from News Nation indicate that Nanos is facing a massive wave of public backlash. The local community is absolutely terrified. A wealthy resident was taken from a highly secure neighborhood, and the police have 0 suspects in custody. The lack of transparent answers breeds intense public distrust. A formal vote of no confidence looms over the department leadership. The political tension bleeds directly into the criminal investigation. Every single press conference is heavily scrutinized by the media. Every official statement is analyzed for signs of weakness or incompetence. The department desperately needs a definitive win. They need to show the terrified public they are making actual progress, but they cannot force the crime lab to process the mixed DNA any faster. They cannot magically retrieve the deleted cloud footage from the servers. The local and federal task force is trapped. They are caught between the cold reality of the forensic data and the hot anger of the voting public. If you are watching this and wondering how you would protect your own family against this kind of digital and physical breach, drop a comment right now and tell us your thoughts. We need to hear your perspective on this security failure. The investigation seems completely derailed by the cryptocurrency demands and the political infighting. The timeline is fractured. The suspect is a ghost. The ransom notes are fake. The media circus is spinning out of control. It feels like the truth is slipping further away with every single news cycle. But experienced investigators do not chase ghosts. They do not get distracted by emails sent to tabloid magazines. They ignore the digital noise, and they return to the physical geometry of the crime. They know the attacker did not teleport away from the Catalina foothills. The attacker had to move through physical space. They had to transport a human being with severe mobility issues. They needed a machine. They needed a vessel to bridge the gap between the isolated house and the outside world. The police filter out the rumors. They filter out the alleged sightings in Mexico. They focus entirely on the local asphalt. They focus on the traffic cameras surrounding the perimeter of the neighborhood. They are looking for a very specific anomaly in the traffic patterns on the morning of February 1st, and they find it. The ghost left a metallic footprint. The authorities finally identify the vessel used during those 41 minutes of silence. It is not a rumor. It is an engine block and 4 wheels. And it is parked exactly where they least expected it. Federal agents converge on a Culver parking lot. They surround a gray Range Rover. This is the physical anchor the investigation desperately needs. According to reports from Reuters and KGUN9, the vehicle is secured and towed. The tires are blocked. The perimeter is taped off. But the internet is already spinning a different narrative. Social media is flooded with stories of an unmarked SUV stalking the Guthrie family for weeks. People claim the house was under constant surveillance. They claim neighbors saw the shadow of a heavy vehicle creeping through the Catalina foothills night after night. We need to cut through that noise immediately. There is absolutely 0 verified police documentation to support the stalking theory. No police reports exist from the weeks prior. No neighborhood watch logs mention an unmarked SUV idling in the dark. It is pure online paranoia. The internet desperately wants a cinematic villain. They want a long term hunter mapping out the target. But the reality is much more terrifying. The reality is sudden and precise. The gray Range Rover is not a scout vehicle, it is the bridge. It is the mechanical link connecting the isolated smart home to the busy streets of Arizona. The FBI does not immediately rip open the doors. They follow strict forensic protocols. They seal the edges of the trunk with tamper-evident tape. They wrap the door handles. They treat the entire vehicle as a fragile biological container. A vehicle interior is a microscopic goldmine. It traps everything. It traps exhaled breath on the glass. It traps shedding skin cells in the fabric fibers. It traps the microscopic splatter of a violent struggle. If Nancy was transported away from the estate, she was almost certainly placed inside that specific vehicle. The 41-minute gap in the server logs suddenly makes brutal sense. Moving a fragile 84-year-old woman is incredibly difficult. It requires time. It requires physical leverage. The intruder could not simply throw her over her shoulder and run. They needed those 36 remaining minutes to execute the transport logistics. They needed to bring the vehicle close to the access point. They needed to manage her mobility limitations while maintaining total silence. They had to ensure no local cameras caught the transfer from the front door to the passenger seat. This is the dominant working theory for federal investigators. The time gap was not a delay. It was the necessary window for a highly complex extraction, but the sealed trunk of the Range Rover holds a much darker possibility. The forensic data pulled from that contained space will answer the ultimate question. Investigators will finally know if they are looking at a disastrous kidnapping attempt, or they will discover they are investigating a calculated assassination using a fake ransom demand as digital camouflage. If the trunk reveals massive blood loss, the entire kidnapping theory collapses. If the trunk reveals medical equipment, the operation was planned to keep her alive. The car is the Rosetta Stone of this case. We are now looking at the cold reality of the present moment. The calendar keeps turning. The days bleed into weeks. Over 2 months have passed since the early morning hours of February 1st. The law enforcement task force is operating in a state of agonizing suspension. The initial burst of momentum is completely evaporated. The anonymous emails demanding cryptocurrency have vanished from the servers. The TMZ tips have dried up. The $1 million reward hangs in the air completely untouched. Nobody is stepping forward to claim the life-changing money. In the criminal underworld, silence of this magnitude usually means the target is gone. A live hostage is a loud hostage. A live hostage requires constant communication to leverage the payout. The silence is deafening. The physical investigation is similarly frozen. The federal crime lab is still running infinite permutations on the mixed DNA profile recovered from the house. The genetic genealogy algorithms are spinning their wheels inside massive server farms. They are trying to separate the victim from the suspect. They are trying to isolate the exact base pairs of the attacker. They are looking for a clear familial match in public databases. But the microscopic soup remains stubbornly tangled. The science is moving too slowly for the demands of the public. Law enforcement is essentially standing on the front porch of the Catalina Foothills estate staring at a locked door. The media pressure is immense and unforgiving. Sheriff Nanos is fighting for his political life while his detectives chase digital ghosts. The local community demands reassurance that their expensive security systems actually work. The national media demands updates on a famous family, but the police have nothing to offer but technical jargon and delayed lab results. The entire ecosystem of this case is paralyzed by the missing data. We are left staring at the same two massive anomalies that defined the very first night. Who holds the registration title to the gray Range Rover currently sitting under fluorescent lights in a federal impound lot? And what specific physical trauma caused a highly reliable medical implant to permanently sever its Bluetooth connection at exactly 2:28 in the morning? The data simply stops there. The 41 minutes of darkness remain a complete black hole. The intruder walked into the server blind spot and swallowed the truth. A smart home is only truly smart if it possesses an independent memory. The 41-minute gap inside the Guthrie estate exposes a massive and systemic vulnerability in how we design residential security. We build digital fortresses relying entirely on remote servers. We trust the cloud to remember every face and every movement for us, but the cloud is incredibly fragile. It is easily blinded. The intruder creeping through the Catalina foothills did not use explosives or heavy machinery to break the perimeter. They simply exploited a network subscription gap. They understood a fundamental truth about modern technology. A motion sensor without a local storage drive is completely useless. It is a digital reflex with absolutely zero memory. What this case teaches us about modern vulnerability is deeply unsettling. It teaches us that relying exclusively on wireless offsite security leaves a physical backdoor wide open for anyone who understands the architecture. If you own a wireless camera system, you must install a physical hard drive backup inside your residence. You must ensure the lenses record locally, even if the main router loses its connection to the outside world. The data must survive the network blackout. Furthermore, we are looking at the terrifying new reality of medical hardware. Devices are no longer just mechanical pumps keeping people alive. They are active network nodes. A modern pacemaker broadcasts a constant Bluetooth signal to a bedside base station. It is a live digital transmitter buried inside the human body. This technology saves thousands of lives by providing immediate diagnostic data to medical professionals, but it also creates a permanent tracking beacon for law enforcement. It creates a digital tether that permanently records the exact moment the heart moves out of range. The silence of the server data is often more terrifying than the physical evidence left behind at the crime scene. The blood discovered on the concrete porch is a traditional forensic clue, but the abrupt death of a Bluetooth connection at 2:28 in the morning is a uniquely modern nightmare. It is a silent witness that cannot be cross-examined in any courtroom. This ongoing investigation fundamentally redefines the concept of safety inside our own walls. It forces us to look very closely at the devices we trust to protect us in the dark. The machines are constantly watching us, but they only tell the truth if they are allowed to remember. The primary camera dies at exactly 1:47 in the morning. The pacemaker connection goes completely dark at exactly 2:28. That 41-minute window contains the entire truth of this ongoing investigation. The authorities are standing at the edge of that massive dark gap holding a seized vehicle and a tangled web of genetic code. They are waiting for the laboratory science to finally catch up to the speed of the crime. They are waiting for the sealed trunk to reveal its microscopic secrets. We are not leaving this broken timeline behind. We will track every single data log and physical clue that emerges from this active investigation. Hit the subscribe button to join Evidence with John so you get the alert the exact second the FBI opens the trunk of that gray Range Rover. The days are passing quickly, but the digital footprints remain perfectly frozen in the servers. The $1 million reward is still waiting for a credible voice to finally break the silence. The media circus continues to spin fake cryptocurrency ransom demands, but the true evidence remains locked away inside a local impound lot. The family is still waiting for an answer to the only question that actually matters right now. What did the masked intruder do during those missing 41 minutes? And what exactly did the final signal of that medical device witness before the house went completely dark?